do you think that was, the Epstein case?
I would say Israel. Obviously. Well, since the 80s, Jeffrey Epstein has been working for Israel.
Does any of this come out to a greater extent than it has?
No, because Israel's controlling our government, this made-up country in the Middle East in 1948. I don't think we've been a sovereign nation since they shot JFK. By deception only. That's the Mossad motto. That's why they execute all these false flags. Everything they're doing is demonic. I want nothing to do with it. I will never support Israel after what they've done to these children.
I am a reaver, and I was taught how to pray Salah.
That means every single time I pray,
the person who told me gets the reward.
5 times a day, from Fajr to Isha.
If you want to support someone like me in learning Salah,
then sponsor 10 people for just £100.
remember the Prophet, peace be upon him, said,
Charity does not decrease wealth. Click the button and donate now.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. If you're watching this video and it's Salah time, please pause it and go pray and come back when you're done. Please check out the description section of this video to support the channel. I just came across a podcast where Tucker Carlson hosted Candace Owens, and to say that she didn't hold back is an understatement. Candace went off on Israel by lifting the lid on Epstein's connection to Mossad, linking his trafficking of children to the Israeli government's blackmail operations against politicians and celebrities. She also exposed the Israeli regime's deliberate starvation of little kids, infants and babies, along with the IDF killing the very same starving children for fun at aid distribution sites, as well as Israel's historic extremism and various false flag attacks in the US and across the world, labelling Israel demonic, satanic and evil, all of which startled Tucker Carlson to the point that he looked as if he was going to pass out from shock. Let's watch the first clip.
What do you think that was, the Epstein case?
I would say Israel, obviously. And again, I'm so tired of us being gaslit. It's the dumbest gaslighting of all time. On record, okay, when Pam Bondi said, I can't even, this was just a moment where I was like, okay, like, F you guys hate us. Like, you have so much power. Why don't you just come out and say, nah, boo-boo, you can't touch us, F you. I would rather you do that, right?
Yes.
Than put on this pretense of a conference, and then you've got Trump over here being like, does anybody still care about Jeffrey Epstein? And then Pam Bondi is asked the question, was he working for another country? And she says, we don't know, right? You don't know? So in my series, I'm like, maybe we can help them. Maybe we can help the deep state figure out who Jeffrey Epstein was working for. Here is Ari Ben Menashe, who was a Mossad agent, who is on record, literally recorded. Let's listen to him tell us about how Jeffrey Epstein was working for the Mossad. Okay, Ari Ben Menashe worked for Mossad, and he's saying that Robert Maxwell brought him to Jeffrey Epstein and said, let this guy in. He's going to be involved in weapons. Hey, Pam Bondi, you might have missed this one. Okay, you might have missed this one. Then you go to another person who is on record, who is Viktor Ostrovsky, who defected from the Mossad notoriously. The Mossad admits he worked for the Mossad. He wrote a book, By Deception or By Deception Only. He says that's the Mossad motto, which they obviously do that. That's why they execute all these false flags. And he told everybody the truth. He has said Jeffrey Epstein was working with us. So for whatever reason, Candace Owens is able to determine whether or not Jeffrey Epstein might have been working for another state. But Pam Bondi, they're just going to have to keep surmising about whether or not Jeffrey Epstein, who is with Ghislaine Maxwell, her father being Robert Maxwell. One of the biggest lies, by the way, that's told, and I debunked this in our third Epstein episode, is the idea that, Robert Maxwell, they admit he was a Mossad agent, but Epstein didn't know him. The story they try to tell now and fashion to the public is like Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein met after her dad was dead. That's just false. Again, Ari Ben Menashe tells the story of being brought into the office and being told that Epstein was going to be brought in. This was the Iran-Contra scandal. So since the 80s, Jeffrey Epstein has been working for Israel. I don't know how I know that, and Trump and Pam Bondi don't, but they got to bring me in. Like, I might have some evidence here.
Does any of this come out? I mean, to a greater extent than it has? I mean, is there ever like a public resolution of this story?
No, because Israel's controlling our government. So no, the answer is no. Trump is powerless against him. I don't think we've been a sovereign nation since they shot JFK. And when I say they, it's like people online say, what do you mean by they? I'm talking about Israel. I don't want you guys to read in between. I'm talking about Israel. So let's stop making that a taboo subject because they've gone mask down. Everything they're doing is demonic. I want nothing to do with it. I will never support Israel into the future after what they've done to these children. The starvation campaign. I don't care.
Credit to Candace for calling out Donald Trump and Pam Bondi for lying to the world about the Epstein files. As Candace stated, these crooked American politicians are refusing to make the details of the Epstein files public because they're covering for Israel. And let's not forget that Donald Trump himself has been closely linked to being in the Epstein files, which could be why he has bent over backwards for Israel due to quite possibly being compromised and blackmailed. Candace claimed Jeffrey Epstein had worked for Israeli intelligence agency, the Mossad, since the 1980s, and she did so with receipts by citing other Mossad agents who are on record admitting that Epstein was part of the Israeli government organisation. Candace called out Mossad's dark history of deception and extremism, highlighting the numerous false flag attacks they've carried out, including the JFK assassination. What's crazy is there's still some Americans and Europeans that back Israel. I get it, a lot of these sellout influencers, media pundits and politicians are on the Israeli payroll, but for the people who are not, how can any Westerner trust a country like Israel that executes false flags against Western citizens in their homelands, overseas and even on international waters? As Candace said, starving and killing kids is demonic behaviour on Israel's part. And like her, for that reason, I could never support a country that harms hundreds of thousands of children in this fashion. And neither should anyone with even a drop of morality. Let's watch the next clip.
Please write your article. You've already written them all. I don't know what you could add right about me, but I do not support Israel, and I don't think that Jewish Americans should support Israel, and I hope that they're now having those conversations. I see many of them recognizing that they have been propagandized into believing they have to support this demonic state, and that's in large part thanks to their birthright trip. Yeah, that mask down moment for Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL when he got caught on the hot mic, it was released. He didn't know that he was being recorded, and he's like, saying that they've got to get TikTok under control. He's like, we have a generational issue with TikTok. We need to do something about this, like what we did with Birthright. What does that tell you? That the entire purpose of that Birthright trip, telling every Jewish American, you forget a free trip to Israel, was to propagandize you into believing that you have some affinity with this made up country in the Middle East, like in 1948, that you have to, react when something's happening to them, or you have to look away when they're doing things that are so obviously wrong and demonic. Allowing your identity to shape your morality is problematic, okay? And Israel, in and of itself, is the demonic nation. I will never support Israel, right? So I went from working for PragerU to I will never support Israel. So that's how much the scales have fallen from my eyes about what they are involved in. And if this isn't your wake-up call to just look at the footage of what they are doing, they're playing Hunger Games and like throwing food at them and then killing people and seeing who survives. It's just at your fingertips. You have to take a look at what Israel is doing. It isn't worth your soul to tell a lie. Tell the truth. And that seems harder. That certainly in that moment of temptation feels harder when you're being promised the world. If you just don't say this thing, everything will stay the same. If you just pretend like you don't see what's happening in Gaza, you can have your life the way that you like it. That is, in my viewpoint, that is being tempted by Satan. That really is. And that is why they want you to be attached to money, right? That is why they don't even know how to try to destroy me outside of saying, we're going to financially crush you, right? We're going to keep you in lawsuits. We're going to sue you. I'm going to sue you for $8 billion because there's no truth in these people. Like money is the only motive. That's their only real power. And so I hope that when people, the millions of people that listen to my podcast every single day, that they get that there is something way bigger than that, way higher authority to that. And when you commit yourself to truth, I think that once you get through that temptation, you are rewarded if you do the right thing, if you do the moral thing and you do the principled thing. You're being tested. We're all being tested right now. That's what I truly believe. We're all being tested. And a lot of people are failing that test. But a lot of people aren't.
I'm glad that Candace addressed the fact that Jewish people do not have to support Israel in the disgusting atrocities they're committing. As she said, the Jewish supremacy disguised as a birthright to return to Palestine and illegally settle there is a complete scam, and just further proves Israel is a fake stolen country built on extremism, colonization and land theft. Candace nailed it when she said putting a Jewish identity before basic morality is problematic, especially if that requires you to partake in the demonic things the Israeli regime is doing in Gaza and the West Bank. She called for the Jewish community in the West to break free of these shackles and complicity by giving the example of how even she herself used to be blinded by the propaganda whilst working for Zionist media outlets during the early stages of her career, until she realised the ugly truth about Israel and simply couldn't support the evil they're involved in. Like she said, it's all on video. The IDF treating starving Palestinians, including children, like animals by throwing scraps of food on the ground and shooting down hungry people for fun as they desperately try to feed themselves. If after seeing such things you're still backing Israel, then you're nothing more more than a demon yourself. She also spoke about some ADL guy getting caught on camera talking about how Zionists must take over TikTok, which they've just done. This just gives away how desperate they are to control the narrative. And as she pointed out, if the Israelis were in the right, they wouldn't need to buy platforms, censor speech, or threaten and slander their detractors like they've done to Candace and countless others. It's precisely because they're in the wrong and are guilty of killing civilians and children en masse over the past 2 years and on impulse for the last 7 to 8 years that they have to do this to save face. And despite this trickery, they're still losing the PR battle badly. As Candace said, Palestine is the ultimate test of our morality as human beings in this modern era, with anyone giving them a voice being on the side of truth, justice and good, and those endorsing what is happening in Gaza or even turning a blind eye to it, siding with Satan. Thank you for watching. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.